Okay, welcome to chapter 3. So we're just going to do 2 sections, but let's start with section 1. So the thing we're going to learn about is the product rule, the quotient rule, and the average cost rule. And it's actually not an average cost rule, it's just a function. But so far, we've only really known how to do the chain rule, like the power rule where you bring something down, and then we've also got like a chain rule that's kind of simplified, but we're going to, take it another step further. So it might be the case that like right here, oops, right down here at the bottom of the screen, that you have one function, this guy right here, and you're going to multiply it by a second function. And until now, if I wanted to figure out what that derivative was, I would have had to multiply this completely out, which would take a really long time, and then do the generalized power rule for each term that I got to take the derivative. But I have a new rule here that says, and that's what's over here, the product rule says that if you have a function f of x and it's comprised of two things multiplied together, then the solution to the derivative is the derivative of the first times the second plus the first times the derivative of the second. This is something you should put on your note card because that is actually really hard to remember, and it would just be nice to just look at your note card and be like, oh yeah, that's it. So what I mean by that is for my first example, it would be nice if you could go, okay, that's two things multiplied together. What's the product rule? The product rule is this guy right here, and then do it together. So I've got a g of x here and an h of x here. So I will write that 4x to the 9th plus 7x minus 15. And h of x is minus 2x to the 4th plus x squared minus 18x plus 10. Okay, and then the product rule says that I'm going to need g prime and h prime. So I'll take the derivative. That's 36x to the 8th plus 7. And h prime would be negative 8x to the 3rd plus 2x minus 18. So then now I'll use this rule up in the top right corner of the screen, and I need g prime, which is 36x to the 8th plus 7 times h of x, which is over here. So minus 2x to the 4th plus x squared minus 18x plus 10. And then plus g, which is my first function, 4x to the 9th, plus 7x minus 15, and then times h prime of x, let's see if I can fit that, minus 8x cubed plus 2x minus 18. Okay, so just like a pro tip here, with this kind of problem, it's actually kind of important, trying to move the screen up. It's actually kind of important to use parentheses. If you're not using parentheses, it's not going to come out right. This is the part where you figure out I don't know how to spell parentheses. Hopefully that's right. Okay, so and actually there's like kind of a trick here that I was going to show you. If you always set up your problem like I did with a g of x and a g prime below it, and then h of x and h prime below it, then there's like a cool pattern here. G prime of x times h of x, and then you add it to g of x times h prime of x. So I don't know if that helps, but if you always set it up like that, then it should always work that way. So for problem 2, I have a g and an h, x to the 5th, and negative 5x to the 4th minus 1 to the 12th power. So derivatives here are okay, they're not too bad. 5x to the 4th. And then this is going to be a power rule 1. Bring down the 12. Negative 5x to the 4th minus 1. 12 minus 1 is 11. And then I'll multiply by the derivative of the inside, which would be negative 20x cubed. Derivative of 1 is 0. Okay, so then I'll do this pattern again where I multiply these two, and add it to the multiplication of those two. So that's x to the 5th times 12 negative 5x to the 4th power minus 1. I gotta close the parentheses. Oh, and actually, I don't need to close it just yet. Times, negative 20x cubed. Okay, so I did x to the 5th times 12 negative 5x to the 4th minus 1 to the 11th power, almost forgot that, times negative 20x cubed. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to add it to, let's see, now the multiplication of going this way, which would be 5x to the 4th times negative 5x to the 4th minus 1 to the 12th power. Okay, so there's one other thing that I wanted to say, because you're going to do some group work involving this, and there's this thing that happens that really confuses people, and I'm hoping to combat that. So up here, this is the product rule, g prime times h plus g times h prime. This would be exactly the same thing as if we did g times h prime plus h times g prime. Like, the point that I'm getting at is that you don't have to do g prime first. You don't have to do, like, you can reorder these two in any way you want. And you can reorder these terms, because that's how multiplication and addition works. What you can't do is, like, you couldn't do, hold on, let me erase. You couldn't do something like g times g prime plus h times h prime, but there's a lot of different ways you can get the same right answer. So when you're doing group work, don't immediately assume someone got something wrong. It might just be looking different than yours. Let's pause right there and we will come back in a minute.